You shouldn't have to explain a pun, but since my title is somewhat cryptic, I've been told, I better explain it so you know where I'm going. A couple of years ago, I found a new and very easy way to construct magic squares with more than the usual properties, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. I'm going to use that method, or two methods actually, to construct a couple of magic squares that contain phi, the golden ratio, and the integer 5 in some ways that I hope are interesting to you. Of course, phi is known to everyone here, I assume. If there's anyone who does not know it, you should certainly investigate it, look it up on the internet, or read one of the many books on the subject. It's a wonderful number. Even if you're not very interested in the math of it, it's been fascinating to artists and musicians and even beauticians. So it appears everywhere in fascinating ways and places, much like Martin Gardner himself. So it's usually represented as 1 plus the square root of 5 over 2, which expands into this infinite decimal sequence with non-repeating patterns. I want to call your attention to the first 5 significant digits in that expansion. Of course, you don't remember it that way. You remember the earlier expression. But I'll point out that the square root can be written as the 1/2 power, and 1/2 can be expressed as 0.5, so we get this sort of cute expression of the same formula. We can also use Benet's theorem because 5 is a Fibonacci number, in fact, the 5th Fibonacci number. And Benet's formula gives exact solutions to all the Fibonacci numbers. So here it is in terms of phi and 5. And since I'm supposed to, here's 13. That has nothing to do with the rest of my talk, but it's a gratuitous reference to 13. It's the 7th Fibonacci number. So that's fascinating because of the way the irrational numbers and the powers combine in such a way to eliminate all the fidgety parts of the infinite sequence to end up with exact integers for all of the Fibonacci numbers. So here's the first magic square. This may not look conventional because of the decimal point, but I constructed this starting with 3,224 in the upper left corner as an integer, and then filled in the next 24 integers in order, not skipping or duplicating any of the numbers. And then I threw in the decimal point to get the answer I wanted, the 1.6180, the first 5 significant digits of phi. But what makes this more interesting as a magic square, it's mildly interesting if you've never seen a magic square before, but you all have, so that's not impressive. This one is pan-diagonal, though, so these additional broken diagonals also sum to the same value. And furthermore, it's symmetric, so we get 4 more symmetric patterns, and because it's both pan-diagonal and symmetric, you can move those patterns around at will, so that the center is in any of the 25 cells. So if it goes over the edge, you have to wrap around to the other side, or into the corner, you'll have to wrap around twice. Those of you who are interested in tilings will know what to do with that. So because you can move it to any of those 4 patterns to any of the 25 cells, you get, let's see, the 10, 20, 120 symmetric patterns that add up to the first 5 significant digits of phi. So that's a little more impressive. But the purists among you, myself included, will say, well, that's not really phi. That's a truncated approximation. Can't you do better than that? So I made another one. I could do it algebraically, but that's really ugly. I did it with line segments, one of length 1 and one of length phi. I've noticed that the side things show the colors a little better. And when you add up geometric figures, that means superimposing them. So here's the magic square. Really quite pretty. There's a green line for 1 and a red line for phi in each of the cells. So if you sum across any of those rows or columns or diagonals or any of those other of the 120 patterns, you'll get the same geometric figure, which numerically adds up to slightly more than 13, coincidentally. And here's the figure. which is wonderful for a magic square because that symbol has been used to represent magic since ancient times. And it's loaded with instances of 5 and 5. Of course, the pentagons around the outside and in the center there, all the red lines are 5s. When you go into the smaller segments, they become reciprocals of 5 and 5 squared. When you calculate perimeters, you get 5 and areas and angles. They all come out to 5 and 5 in various combinations. So the details are in my paper in the gift exchange. And I'd like to end you with my 13th slide and thank Mark Gardner for a lifetime of inspiration for all of us. And I'd like to thank his fans and friends and family for continuing that tradition. Thank you.